Inside Princess Beatrice's secret royal wedding, their plans for the future, and how Kate and Meghan sent their well wishes.
And suddenly, ping, there's a royal wedding. We thought, hey, royal wedding? What royal wedding? And suddenly we realised it was Princess Beatrice who snuck in, none of us knew, and got married.
Prince Philip makes a rare appearance as Prince George turns 7 and gets some royal love.
All ranks, all riflemen, whether serving or retired, would like to thank you for 67 years of continuous service, support and leadership.
Plus, ITV Royal reporter Chris Shipp takes us inside Meghan and Harry's court case and reveals what it's like to be a member of the Royal ROTA.
She didn't have close friends here. She was in this institution that was very difficult with rules and regulations, but also the scrutiny from the press. And I think, after 2 years, she thought, do I want this for the next 30 or 40 years? I don't. I want out.
We've got that plus so much more in today's Royally Us. Hello to our fellow royal lovers and welcome to Royally Us. I'm Christina and I'm so excited to be joined by Chris Shipp, ITV Royal Editor, who is going to be guest hosting with us this week. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, you're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited because we have so much to break down. There's a ton of news this week. We had a secret royal wedding, which I don't know how they pulled it off, but they did.
I was in Windsor on that day and I was about to record our own podcast that we do here in the UK, and suddenly, ping, there's a royal wedding. We thought, hey, royal wedding? What royal wedding? And suddenly we realised it was Princess Beatrice who snuck in, none of us knew, and got married. Congratulations to her.
They fooled us all. So Chris is going to help us break it all down. He's also going to tell us what it's like to be a member of the Royal ROTA, which is really interesting. So he's going to tell us all about that. But first, before we get to that, we want to highlight some of our royal watchers, our royal viewers who give us a ton of comments week after week. And this past week was no exception. So kicking it off with Fancy says, Harry and Meghan may be uncomfortable away from his home country, but the reporters and press attacked Meghan for 2 years. Chris, I know that you've been following the legal battle that's been going on, and we're going to talk about that a lot more coming up later in the show. But do you feel that the press really attacked Meghan and Harry these past couple of years?
Yeah, I think, when you say the press, there are many different aspects of the media. We like to think that we're in the broadcast media. We do TV, we do online, but then you've got the tabloid newspapers here in the UK, which, I think a lot of people have criticised for how they covered Harry and Meghan. It's a difficult place to be when you're a member of the royal family and you're getting all sorts of news coming at you, not just in the UK, but internationally as well. And I just think, Harry and Meghan had a tough time. There's no doubt about it. You just got to look at the interview that my colleague Tom Bradby did back last fall, and Meghan let it be known there that she was really unhappy. So they did get a tough time, not from every outlet of the media. I like to think that we gave them a sort of fair and accurate, an impartial reportage, but they did get a tough time in some parts of the UK press.
Yeah, definitely. Like we said, we're going to break that down a little bit more. Jill says, Kate is an amazing mother and so down to earth. I mean, you've been covering her for years. I mean, do you feel like that as well? Is she a very down to earth person?
Yeah, and I think the lockdown that we've had here has given us a little bit of an insight into their royal lives, a bit more than you might have got, because I think if those 3 kids had been in Kensington Palace, we wouldn't have seen some of those amazing pictures we've had over the past few weeks of, Prince George with his hands covered in rainbow paint. And I think, Kate likes to get the kids outside. She's spoken before about how she thinks they should get down into nature and do gardening and things. It's really good for their mental health as well as their physical health. I think she just enjoys being a mum. She enjoys cooking in the kitchen with them too. Yeah,
it's been refreshing to see all of their Zoom calls and, how real that they have been about homeschooling and life in lockdown. So
my favorite fact was when Kate said she didn't tell the kids that it was the Easter vacation, and she'd said to them, look, no, we're going to continue with school.
Yes, she's a strict mom, a hard mom. And then the last one, Tracy Thrift says, last week we had Dickie Arbiter on the show. She says, Dickie is so genuine. It's amazing. He told us that the Queen washes dishes just like us. I think it was just a funny story that, she does do normal things just like the rest of us.
Yeah, you're right. And actually, the Queen's known for being quite parsimonious. If you look at some of those pictures inside Buckingham Palace, despite the big rooms and the grandeur, she's often got a 2-bar electric heater on the floor, just warming her feet. So she's always known for being quite parsimonious. And famously, we talk about those barbecues that Prince Philip has cooked up in Balmoral in Scotland when they take people out onto the estate, and he's the one cooking the sausages. It's not as if they have some courtiers trotting around after them with a barbecue.
I love that. I love that. Like you said, they're just like us, you know, they have cookouts, they invite over their friends, you know, have a good time. It's good. It's nice to hear that. All right, let's move on to our royal roundup, our royal news of the week. And like we said at the beginning, a secret royal wedding that even people on the ground at Windsor did not even know what was going on, right, Chris?
You're right. And I mean, there's a few reasons why this wedding had to be kept secret. One, because of coronavirus, and you can't have that many people at a wedding. In fact, the rules in the UK at the moment are that you can't have any more than 30 people at your wedding. So you could call that 15 for the bride and 15 for the groom. We know that the Queen was there, that Prince Philip was there. We saw the pictures of that. And even in the pictures, they were socially distant from one another, standing either side of the church gate. But, you know, then there's the difficult side for both Beatrice and Eugenie, and it's all the difficulties that their father is wrapped up in at the moment with Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and all the rest of it. So there's a number of reasons why they had to keep this thing as secret as they could.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the pictures looked absolutely beautiful. I mean, she looks stunning. And so can you kind of tell us the significance of the dress and the tiara that she wore?
Yes, this is a Sir Norman Hartnell dress, a sort of vintage dress that has belonged to the Queen. She didn't wear it at her wedding, but it was one of the dresses that the Queen had. So I think that lovely touch that she was able to wear that particular dress. And also the tiara that she had on was the one that the Queen wore at her wedding to Prince Philip in 1947. So there was all those family links there. And I think the Queen would have been as touched by her granddaughter wanting to wear that and wanting to wear a vintage dress, just as much as I think Beatrice was touched that she was able to have it loaned to her from Granny.
Yeah, I mean, talk about something borrowed. That's
yeah. And actually, she had to ask Granny's permission as well to be married in that All Saints Church, which is inside the sort of Windsor estate. So it was a big old estate, Windsor. We were in the town on Friday, but the wedding was going on at 11 o'clock in the morning. We knew nothing about it at all. But some photographers did manage to catch some glimpses of some movements. We got a little sniff that something was up just before they announced it.
Something's going on. But I mean, that's tradition that a lot of, you know, royal kids, grandkids wear tiaras from the Queen during their weddings, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they've got a lot to choose from.
A lot, yeah.
Let's be clear. It's not as if they've only got a cabinet in the kitchen with a couple of tiaras. There was a lot to choose from. I mean, you know, Kate, Meghan, they were able to have that kind of choice. And these are tiaras that date back to the time of Queen Victoria or Queen Mary, who was the wife of King George V. So, you know, they've got a lot of tiaras to choose from.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, do we know anything about the ceremony? We know that it was only about, 20 people that were there, but do we know that anybody gave speeches, anything like that?
We know very little, and actually, you know, because of the coronavirus situation, but also because they wanted to keep this thing as low key as possible. We know barely anything about the wedding. We know that Prince Andrew was there. We know that that her mother, the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, was also there, and of course her sister, because her sister was Instagramming a day later about what a privilege it was to see her sister get married to Eduardo, and how happy they're going to be, and how they're going to share the new chapter together as a sort of foursome between the two couples. And I think those sisters are really, really close, Beatrice and Eugenie. But what a contrast to Eugenie's wedding. I mean, I was at that, and we covered it live on our network, and you know, there were hundreds of people there. There were celebrities. There were crowds outside. Yes, it was 6 months after Harry and Meghan got married there, a little bit smaller. But the contrast between Beatrice's wedding on Friday and Eugenie's in 2018 is huge.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that is because of everything? I mean, obviously because of the coronavirus, you can't have a lot of people, but do you also think that it's because of everything going on with Prince Andrew that they really want to kind of keep this under wraps a little bit?
You know, it would be perfectly normal to release a wedding picture the day afterwards with the bride's father and the bride's mother. You'll note that they didn't appear in any of the pictures at all, and that's because they're just trying to keep Prince Andrew out of the headlines at the moment, because he's been wrapped up in everything, and every time there's a mention of Ghislaine Maxwell in court, the Prince Andrew story rears its head again. We should be clear, he denies all allegations of wrongdoing, but you know, there have been allegations made, and he does admit that he made an error of judgment in being friends with Jeffrey Epstein in the first place. So I think Buckingham Palace's priority here was to keep him completely out of the way and focus this on Beatrice and the Queen, on the Queen and Beatrice, because obviously they've got that lovely, you know, grandmother-granddaughter relationship.
Definitely. And do we know if Harry and Meghan, Kate and William, did they send any congratulations and any well wishes? I think Kate and William posted something on their Instagram.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, Harry was likely to have done it privately because he was quite close to his cousin. So I think he would have done that privately. William and Kate did post on Twitter and social media and wish them, every luck and happiness as well. And congratulations to the couple. Harry and Meghan, however, don't have their own social media account at the moment. Once they sort of parked the Sussex Royal website and the Sussex Royal Instagram page, they don't really have a place where they can share these things publicly at the moment in any case. So if they did it, which I rather suspect Harry would have done, he would have done it privately.
Yeah, we're still waiting for that social media return of Harry and Meghan.
When it will come, I mean, it will be huge. And there's still, 10 million people, is it, on Sussex Royal, even though no one's posting on it anymore. But there'll be plenty of people waiting for the Archerwell social media site.
We are waiting. Now, this was also interesting because now Queen Elizabeth left the ceremony early because she had an important knighthood ceremony, which is that what you attended?
Exactly. That's why I was in Windsor on that day. So we all trotted into the quadrangle, which is near the sort of private apartments of Windsor Castle. So if you're ever in Windsor, you can go and visit the castle. You can walk around certain bits of it, but you don't get to see the private bit, which is where the Queen and Prince Philip live and where they've actually spent the entire lockdown since they moved there from London. So we were in the quadrangle and the Queen was there to knight a very famous guy here in the UK. I think you might have heard of him in the US as well, though, Captain Tom Moore, who's now become Captain Sir Tom Moore. And the Queen, the lovely part of this story, this guy's 100 years old, but the Queen broke her own lockdown rules. She's not seen anyone, she's not had any public engagements, but she broke her own lockdown rules so she can invite this 100-year-old war veteran to Windsor Castle and do the honours with the sword. And knight him in Windsor Castle. It was a beautiful ceremony. Actually, I was sitting there with some other correspondents from some other networks in the UK, and we thought, this is actually quite emotional. This frail old chap there with his walking frame, waiting for the Queen to turn up, a special invitation for him to be knighted. It was a beautiful little moment.
I was gonna say, that must have been such a special, I mean, I'm sure you've covered a lot of amazing events throughout the year, but it's nice to see something like that, so positive and something to lift everybody's spirits during this crazy time.
For sure.
Definitely. Oh, I love that. So while the Queen was keeping busy, so was William, of course. He visited a drop-in support facility for rough sleepers. And we actually have a little bit of video for that. So take a look at this.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Have you lost weight?
Oh, Gary, that's I'm just worried now what you're looking at.
No, I wasn't looking at anything like that.
Don't look like a boss, mate. Bit of Brandon Charles, maybe. Have I lost a bit of weight up here? Around the chin?
I think so.
Yeah, that's very good. Maybe lockdown.
But you're looking good, though. You're looking fit.
Gary, that's very kind. Thank you.
So what was this visit all about?
So Prince William actually does quite a lot for charities which help the homeless and rough sleepers. So this was one that's not a million miles from where he's been staying in Norfolk, which is in the east of England. That's where he and Kate and the 3 children have spent the lockdown. And he went along to this charity in Peterborough just to keep in touch with those who have, how have they got through the lockdown? We think of our own personal difficulties with the lockdown and social distancing. Well, imagine if you've got no place to live, and that's been really hard. I'm sure it's the same situation where you are as well. It's been really tough for those who are rough sleepers and homeless. And the Prince was there to give them his support, and I think they really did appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's been doing, like we said before, they've been on constant Zoom calls throughout the COVID-19 crisis. They really have been doing their part and kind of stepping up in a time where you can't get out and can't, interact socially with people in person, but I think they've really stepped up. Zoom has
been amazing for the whole royal family. The fact we even had the Queen on Zoom last week, didn't we? But I think William and Kate, you name it, they've Zoomed it in this lockdown, and they really have given it some special attention. And whether they've spoken to nurses in hospitals, whether they've spoken to sort of care home assistants in old people's homes, whether they've spoken to charities, they even did a game of bingo. I'm sure you must have covered it when Kate was calling out the bingo numbers for elderly residents. And again, I think Zoom's been great for them. It's been great for the whole royal family. That means they can keep in touch. Otherwise, they would have been pretty faceless throughout this whole period. And that's not great for a royal family that needs to be seen.
Yeah, no, I think it's really lifted a lot of people's spirits. And, even the Queen addressing the nation several times I mean, it's
Yeah.
something that, you don't really see too often, and in unprecedented times, it definitely.
I agree with you. And the fact that the Queen's only made those special broadcasts about 5 times in her entire reign, which, as we know, is 68, nearly 70 years now, and yet she's done it twice in recent weeks. Once for coronavirus, once to celebrate the end of the war, the Second World War in Europe. And I think they were big events. If it weren't for for social media, I mean, some of these things would have been really, really difficult. But the Queen's there, broadcasting to the nation. It was a time when our Prime Minister, for example, was in hospital, seriously ill with coronavirus. So I think a lot of people were pleased to see the Queen was there, and that sort of, the stability that she provides as being the head of state and has been for so many years.
Yeah, the voice of reason. I love it. Well, while everybody else was keeping busy, so was Prince Charles and Duchess of Cornwall. They were also on the move this week for their annual tour of the Devon of Cornwall. So what is this annual trip, and what do they tend to do when they're there?
Well, they kind of do a few annual trips. For example, he's known as the Prince of Wales, which is the traditional title of the heir to the throne, and he goes to Wales, so that, once a year as well. This is a trip they do to Cornwall. Now, he's not only the Prince of Wales, he's also the Duke of Cornwall, which is why his wife is called the Duchess of Cornwall. And there's obviously a reason why she's not called the Princess of Wales. So they go to Cornwall every year, and they sort of keep in touch with that part of the world. And don't forget that Prince Charles's money comes from the Duchy of Cornwall. That's where a lot of his revenue comes from in order to pay for his activities. It also pays, incidentally, for William and Kate and Harry and Meghan as well. So that the Dukedom of Cornwall is very important to them. And they do go down there, which is in the southwest corner of England, right at the very end of the country, effectively. And they go down there where they meet people. They were at some beautiful place called Tintagel Castle, which, if you look at the pictures on social media, it's a stunning location with a suspended bridge over this gorge that they were walking along. And also Camilla launched a helicopter in her name. The helicopter is called the Duchess of Cornwall, and it's one of those air ambulances, which is in this country run by a charity. And she was there officially naming the helicopter that was named after her.
I love that. I feel like we've also seen a different side of her over the past few weeks as well. A little bit more of a lighthearted a side of her, especially when she compared Prince Charles to a mountain goat, I think. Yeah.
I mean, she's great. I mean, actually, she's always kind of, playing a joke at the expense of her husband quite often. And when we go on tour with them, for example, she's the first one to the back of the plane to talk to her. She's the first one who will come up to you at an engagement, or if you're going around a market, a food market in, Eastern Europe, or I remember them doing it in Canada, for example, she'll come up and sort of invite you to taste the food as well. She's always very good with the press, is Camilla. And I think I agree with you that during the lockdown, you've seen that sort of side of her. And I spoke to Camilla quite recently when she was when they did their very first engagement, when they went to thank hospital staff in Western England. And she was talking about the staff being the best of British, the way they've just dealt with this coronavirus crisis, which is, been a pretty difficult period for us, and as it has been for you, as it is for Brazil, Spain, Italy. But she was really, warm. And a lot of people find that when they do meet her face to face, she's a really warm person.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I love seeing the royals in their own elements and kind of letting their guard down a little bit. I think that's great. Well, let's move on to our royal history moment of the week, because Prince Philip actually made a very rare appearance.
So we do the best of both. Oh, keep it up, sir.
Something that we haven't seen in a long time. He hasn't, he retired from official duty a few years ago, but now it's nice to see him kind of out and about.
So Prince Philip is 99 years old. I mean, we were talking earlier about Captain Tom was 100. Prince Philip's a mere 99 years old. And as you say, he retired in 2017, so we've not really seen him at all since then. So the fact he's come out and he's handing over the colours, it's like a military procession. He's handing over colours to the Rifles, one of the British regiments. And actually he's handing them to his daughter-in-law, the Duchess of Cornwall. So he's going to do his thing from Windsor Castle, where he's been based throughout the lockdown. She's going to receive her thing from Highgrove House, which is the country house that she and Prince Charles have in the west of England. And seeing the Duke of Edinburgh at age 99 is a really rare event. The last time we saw him moving was when he left hospital on Christmas Eve, looking very frail after he'd been in there for 5 days or so. So seeing him again was quite something.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 99, Good for him. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, and we saw him at the wedding as well, so it's nice to see him.
Yeah, we saw him at the wedding, which was just a still photograph. We also saw a photograph that was issued of him on his 99th birthday with the Queen at Windsor Castle. But you know, seeing him on a TV camera was something unusual, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to see him. It definitely is. All right. Well, now it is time to spill the royalty. And Chris, we know that you have been keeping busy covering all the legal issues and battles that Harry and Meghan have been having in their ever-evolving court case. So what is the latest that is going on?
Well, where we are, the court case at the moment is focusing on these 5 friends of Meghan who spoke to People magazine in the US, which is being used by the newspaper, by the Mail on Sunday, as part of its defense. Basically, the Mail on Sunday is saying, look, your friend spoke to People magazine. One of them referred to this letter that you sent to your father. Therefore, we have every right to publish the letter, even though Meghan's claiming it's private. And she's taking legal action against this newspaper on the grounds of her privacy, copyright, and data protection as well. And a lot now will focus on these 5 friends. Now, the Mail on Sundays thinks they should be named because they're central to this case. And if you thumb through, and I haven't seen it because we don't get a copy of it, but you thumb through to the very end of the court papers, that's where the 5 friends are named. But for the public, for people like me, all you see is friend A, friend B, C, D, and E. And so the court is actually listening to the arguments between Meghan and the newspaper about whether or not these friends should and could be named.
What do you think? Do you think that these friends should be named, or is this, you know, I mean, part of reporting, you have sources and you shouldn't be naming your sources?
I mean, that's the issue. I mean, these friends went and spoke to People magazine by their own volition. Meghan says that she didn't give them permission, and nor did she particularly want them to do it. But these friends said that they could see the attacks that were happening on Meghan. She was pregnant at the time. They say they were worried about her mental health. And they decided to go off to speak to People magazine and speak about the Meghan that they know, the real person. Now, they did it on condition of anonymity. I can't see what benefit there will be if they were to be named. So I don't know what decision the judge will take, of course. And the last big decision he took, he sided with the newspaper rather than Meghan. So we shall have to see. But they're also in court discussing costs as well, because obviously these things aren't cheap. Yeah. So the latest on that court case is the friends and the money. So quite a big deal.
I mean, what do you think the outcome is going to be in this case? And you know, what do you think that Harry and Meghan want at the end of this? Do you think that this whole thing was worth it?
Well, they're not after the money. I mean, we know that for sure. What they're after is to prove a point that if you write a private letter to your father, then that letter should remain private. Now, the newspaper's claiming you were a senior member of the royal family at the time. Therefore, there was a public interest defence in publishing this letter. Meghan, however, says, look, there's no justification for this. You just wanted to pry into my private life, and you wanted to report on the ongoing difficulties that I was having with my father. And you know, the sad part of this whole story is that she still hasn't spoken to her father since she got married to Prince Harry. Prince Harry has still not met his father-in-law. Archie has still not met his granddad. And I think that part of it is always what gets me, the sort of personal part of this story, and it must be very difficult for the whole family to have to live this personal family difficulty in the public eye in the way in which they are having to do.
Oh, definitely. I mean, everybody has family drama, but nobody has to do it in front of millions and millions of people. That's definitely
apart from Johnny Depp at the moment.
Right, exactly. That's a whole other story. Now it's time to break down the royal rules, and this is really cool for a lot of our viewers because you are a member of the Royal Rota, so you are up close and personal, and you get to go to all these amazing events, cover these amazing events, from royal weddings to the Ascots to the knightings and things like that. So I mean, what is it like kind of being up close and personal at these events, and how did you become a member?
You know, it's quite a privilege, I have to say, no matter what member of the royal family you're with, be it the Queen, be it Charles and Camilla, William and Kate, Harry and Meghan in their day. It was always a real privilege to have a ringside seat at these events. Not just the ones in the UK, but we go on tour with them as well. We often go in the same aircraft, the same plane as the royals themselves. Sometimes they'll come back and have a chat with members of the press. So the whole thing is a privilege. You know, we, for example, went to Pakistan with William and Kate last year, and you know, they will come back to the plane, kind of talk to you as well about their own worries, their own nerves about doing a big tour like this, especially when a lot's riding on it, you know, be it diplomatic relations between the UK and this particular country. I remember going to the Middle East with William. You know, it's a hot potato wherever you go to the Middle East, isn't it? But, you know, even Prince William himself, we were all in the back of the plane reading our sort of guide to the Middle East books as fast as we could. And William sort of came back and admitted that he'd been doing that kind of homework as well. So it's nice to sort of hear from them on a very personal level about how they have some very similar struggles to the rest of us. Maybe they've got servants, maybe they've got people to cook for them, but, you know, on some levels, they've got the same anxieties that we have. I'm
sure these events, you know, it's a lot of pressure. A lot of people are watching and paying attention to every move, everything that they say, everything that they do. So, you know, they always got to be on top of their game at all time. Yeah, exactly. And especially when you're meeting heads of state, presidents, you know, and they meet a lot of people and they've got to know a lot of things. So I think the work is pretty hard for them. Everyone thinks about a royal tour. It's often said to me, oh, it's a bit like a holiday being on a royal tour. It's nothing like that at all. You are literally on the go from 7 a.m. in the morning till 10, 11 o'clock at night, meetings, different events. Only a small amount of that might end up on the TV news bulletins in the evening, but actually the day itself, they're very long and they're quite pressurized. And every event, as you just said, something could go wrong. Someone could say something. You've got to remember people's names. It's quite a tough gig. Yeah. Has anything ever gone wrong, or do you have a favorite memory with a member of the royal family? Well, you know what, I remember when I was in Canada, we were in very far north in Canada, one of the very, very remote areas with the Duchess of Cornwall and Prince Charles, when the Canadians were doing a very traditional singing, which is called throat singing, which makes have you ever heard it? It makes an amazing noise from your throat, and you stand very close to one another when you do it. And Camilla clearly found the whole thing funny, and one of the issues with it is you're meant to put off your opponent by making them laugh. So you do this, and Camilla just got a fit of giggles. And we spoke earlier about how she has quite a good sense of humor. And watching her on stage, trying to control her laughter was just hilarious, and it made everyone else around them laugh. And you can see Prince Charles next to her sort of looking at the floor. And yeah, things go wrong. A diplomatic incident that she wasn't seen to be laughing at these native Canadians, but actually I think she was just enjoying it so much that she just got a fit of giggles. And it happened to us at school when you weren't meant to laugh. It happens to the wife of the heir to the throne when she's on an important tour. I love that. I have to find the video to that. I hope there's video. There is. It was our camera that filmed it, actually, so I'm sure you can easily find it if you stick into Google. And I mean, do you miss being able to cover Harry and Meghan since they're not here and, you know, members of the royal family anymore? I do. I mean, I think Harry and Meghan had so much to offer. I mean, I used to, you know, when I went to some of those events that Meghan did in the UK, the two ones that stand out for me, one is the cookbook that she launched, the Together cookbook, with the women from a very diverse community close to Grenfell Tower. She supported them. She helped them raise funds. She used the funds from the cookbook. And when she spoke there, she was so passionate, she was so articulate. I remember her mother was there, Doria Ragland, as well. And it was a real privilege to be at that event and meet some of the women as well, who are all amazing people in their own right and are now setting off on their own adventures or business ventures here, there and everywhere. And the other one for me is the one that Meghan did for women who were unemployed, particularly women from ethnic minorities in the UK who couldn't get work and they needed some help with a simple thing like how to get dressed for an interview, or a department store on Oxford Street in London. And I think Meghan's got that ability to make stuff happen. A lot of people have spoke about how Meghan was, you know, a difficult person to work for because she really worked very, very hard. I think that's true. Right. But she achieved some stunning results as well. And I think a lot of people now sit back and think, you know, what could Harry and Meghan have achieved had they stayed in the royal family for the long term rather than leaving as they did earlier this year? And I do miss their events and the tours that I went on with them, both Australia
and also the Africa tour just at the end of last year. There were amazing things to cover, and we went to some amazing places, but at the end of it, it all just turned a bit sour. The rest is history. The rest, we know, they decided that they wanted out.
Yeah. Do you think they jumped ship a little too quickly? Maybe things would have changed?
I just think it just happened too quickly. I think for Meghan, I just think she was quite uncomfortable here. I think you hear now that Harry's quite lonely in California because he's away from his family. He's not in his native country. I think she had the same problem here. You know, she didn't have people around her that she knew. She didn't have close friends here. She was in this institution that was very difficult with rules and regulations, but also the scrutiny from the press. And I think, you know, after 2 years, she thought, you know, do I want this for the next 30 or 40 years? I don't. I want out. And, you know, all credit to them for making that very hard and very public decision to leave.
It'll be interesting to see what the future kind of unfolds for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait. Well, before we wrap up, we have to check in with our pint-sized palates, our royal kiddos, and it was a big week for Prince George. He turned 7 years old. I can't believe he's 7.
7 years old. I mean, I didn't cover his birth at the hospital. I did Louis', but I was doing a different job when George was born. But 7 years old. I mean, and you know, some more pictures released for his birthday as well. He's a cutie, and actually, we've had a lot of pictures, haven't we, from Kate, taken by the Duchess of Cambridge herself, of her 3 children during lockdown, and they've all been pretty fantastic pictures. And
Yeah, he's got a great eye.
Really memorable ones as well. So happy birthday to George.
Yeah, definitely. Have you covered him at events at all? What's he like? Is he mischievous?
Yes, I've been with him at I remember going with William and Kate to Germany when they actually brought the kids with them. So the subsequent tours they've done, because the children are now in school, they can't take them with them. But when we went to Germany and Poland a couple of years ago, both George and Charlotte were there, and it was lovely having them, you know, as part of the tour, and just their cheeky smiles, and seeing Charlotte as well. I think she's going to be quite a handful when she's older, if she isn't now. And it's lovely having them along. And we also saw them when the whole family got together for Kate's garden that she designed for the Chelsea Flower Show last year, and seeing the 3 of them together was quite something. And actually, I think that the shots we've seen of them during the lockdown, when they've been doing, you know, the clapping for the health workers in the UK every week, it's been great to see them all.
It really has. It really has. Well, Chris, I can't thank you enough for spending the time talking all things Royals with us. I really, really appreciate it. And I know you have a Royals podcast, so if you want to tell everybody where they can listen to it and what it's all about, that would be great.
Well, we spoke about the Royal ROTA. Our podcast is called the Royal ROTA on ITV. So just do a search. We put it on YouTube. We also put it on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify as well. So we do one every week with my producer, who's called Lizzie Robinson. And if you want to follow a podcast, it's not as good as yours, because how can we compete with your with your amazing podcast? But I appreciate you having me along as your guest today, and it's been a pleasure being with you.
Oh, it's been so much fun. It's been so much fun. Well, in the meantime, for all your royal news, head on over to ITV and to usmagazine.com, and keep on commenting, keep subscribing to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you next week. Chris, again, thank you so much.